when Yitzchak had become old and his eyes dim from seeing, that he summoned Esav, his older son, and said to him, my son, and he said to him, here I am, I've aged, don't know when I'm going to die, and bring me food that I can bench you. On this idea that Yitzchak Avinu became old and his eyes dim from seeing, Rashi offers three interpretations, source two. One from the smoke of the incense that Esav's wives offered to their idols. We're not touching that today. Two, when Yitzchak lay bound on the altar at the Akedah, the ministering angels wept over him. The tears fell into his eyes and dimmed them. And three, this was the way the Hashgacha ensured that Yaakov Avinu would get the bracha because he wouldn't know who he's blessing. Right, this is classic, and we're going to see more interpretations in a minute. So the question that we're going to ask ourselves today, Shari Ora, in source number 3, is L'chorot tzarech iyun tuva malchei maro kishira'u maiman meromem v'niskav zeh shel hakeda av oked epino umekadesh shmo yisparach. This is the experience. A father is ready to give his child at the Akedah, Mekadesh Shem Shemayim, and Shizon Tachlis Habriya, which is ultimately why we're here on planet Earth. Hayim Yesh Makom Livkot? Why are they crying? This is the ultimate, right? The tears don't make sense. Harei Aytat Tzricha Liot Simcha Hachi Gdola Eitzal Malachei Hasharetz. When they saw Kisharu Maimad Gadol Zeh, this was such an incredible experience. They're crying. This is a time of simcha, a time of joy. Oh, so you could answer the tears of happiness. That's an approach, and then we're all going to leave. But I drove here for an hour, so I'm staying. You live nearby. You can leave. I'm staying. Other questions that we're going to touch on, and each of these questions deserve its own space. I want to just touch on them. In source number 4, Rav Dessler. How could it be that Yitzchak preferred Esav to Yaakov? Further, why is it that Hashem wanted that Yaakov should obtain the blessing by deceit rather than in a straightforward manner? Like, this is crazy. Just give him the bracha the way it should be what? Given. Why was it given the bracha this way? And further, finally, the end of source 4, when Yaakov Avinu comes in, Pasuk tells us, Vayarach et reach begadav. He smelled the smell of his clothing. And Rashi tells us that Nichnas imo reach Gan Eden, the smell of Gan Eden entered. Within parentheses here, this is the parentheses, what was the smell of Gan Eden that he smelled? So Chazal tell us it was reach tapuchim, the smell of the apples of the field. Based on this, the Sfarim point out that there's an inyan in Minhag Yisrael to eat apples Friday night. That apples are the reach tapuchim. Friday night is the time of this higher level of Gan Eden. It's this time of bracha. You will find many people, Minhag Yisrael, any of you here have a minhag to eat compote on Friday night? Yeah, I have some people raising their head. This is, and the Sfarim say, now hold on tight to this, it is a skula for ashirus, for wealth. Because it's a bracha. And I will tell you personally in my life, this is a personal story, that when I saw this many years ago, I saw this piece, I started serving apples Friday night. And my members of my family were a little bit like, Ima, everything you read, you're going to what? Parnasa. And I held my ground, and I said, this is a core issue here, and even though it may not be appealing to you, it is what I'm going to do. And I want you to know, and this is a true story, a few months later, without requesting it, my boss doubled my salary. Wow. They have stopped making fun of me. Now they serve apples in their homes. What'd you say? It took him a few months. You know what? Some people are not ra'ui for a bracha right away. It's my limitation, not his.
What's the connection between this and that?
It's, again, the reach tapuchim, the smell of the apples.
Well, why does it translate into
Bracha. Bracha. Why parnasa dafka, I don't know. But you know what? I'm not asking, and I'm okay with it. Okay, that had nothing to do with anything. I can see you walk out of here. What did you learn today? Apples. She spoke about apples. I don't know what else she spoke about, but that's what I walked away with. Yeah. Okay. And if anyone wants to see the source inside, I don't mind showing it to them if you have critical people at home. Okay, I knew where I was. I'm back on the program. Rashi tells us, Vayarach et reach begadav. Don't read it begadav, read it bogdav, the traders. And he tells the story of this famous trader, Yosef Meshifta, who went in at the time of the Churban. They said to him, go into the Beis HaMikdash, a Jew, and take whatever you want. And he comes out with what? The menorah. And they said, it's not appropriate for a simple person to have the menorah. Go back in and take something else out. And he said, I angered my Creator once. I'm going to anger him again. And he was tortured to death and died al Kiddush Hashem. And when Yitzchak Avinu sensed that traders like this were going to come out of this caliber of tshuva, he says, you're worthy of what? You're worthy of the bracha. How does this all fit in? So again, each of these questions is a sheer in its own right, but we're going to touch on them. Okay, my friends, there are 3 levels today, Mirz Hashem. Again, I preface it with what I prefaced it last week. Just like last week, we didn't speak about Sarei Menu, even though we were speaking about Sarei Menu. We are speaking about Yitzchak Avinu, but I am not speaking about Yitzchak Avinu, which means, who am I to even speak about someone of such a great caliber, one of the Avos HaKadoshim? Whatever we're saying is just for us to be able to have a medium of growth and learning, but in no way. Am I making sense? Okay, good. There's a Gemara in Megillah, source 5. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Asur listakel b'tselem dumut adam rasha. It's asur to stare at a person who's a rasha, a wicked person. Rabbi Elazar Amar einav kohot. And if you do, your eyes will become dim. And this is because we learned this from Yitzchak Avinu, because he had this relationship with Esav, who was an adam rasha. He was pretty bad, yeah. His eyes became dim. Then the Gemara goes on and says, if we can turn off our phones, that would be helpful. Vaha amar Rabbi Yitzchak. That wasn't in the Gemara, that was me, yeah. Vaha amar Rabbi Yitzchak, la'olam alti klilalas hedjos kalabeinecha. There's another reason why his eyes became dim. And that is you can't take the curse of a simple person lightly. Avimelech, and this is in its own right, when he found out that Sarah Imenu was really married and not a brother and sister, he said to her, Hinei la ksut einayim. I'm giving you a ksut einayim, the covering of the eyes, which Chazal say was a curse. That just like you duped me, you will be duped. And that's why Yitzchak Avinu's eyes were dimmed. Notes the Ber Yosef of Yosef Salan Satzal in source number 6a and 6b. The two are hainu hach, they work together. Which means, Dihine, I'm in the bracket in 6a, bottom of the page. Dihine hatam mashi Yitzchak yistakel be'esav beno, hu mishum shaya machziko l'tzadik. Had Yitzchak Avinu really known the rishus, the wickedness of Esav, he wouldn't be staring at him. Why didn't he know the rishus of Esav? Was because of what? Because he was under the curse of Avimelech, and he really thought that what? He was a tzaddik. And it's a midah k'neged midah. Just like Avimelech thought they were husband and wife and not what? They were brother and sister, not husband and wife. So too, Yitzchak Avinu thought that Esav was really a bigger tzaddik than he was. And because of this curse, he wasn't able to see the truth. And so to speak, his eyes were blinded. Therefore, he did stare at his son. And therefore, this was the repercussion. Now, I want to add here a piece in source number 8. And I'm going to preface this piece as well. We, all of us sitting here, are under Western mindset. Western mindset means that we need to be able to understand something, figure it out, have it make sense, and if it doesn't, we say what? We discard it. We discard it like, oh, come on. Do you know what I mean by that? So here is an example of this. I'm going to say something, and you're going to say to me, please. And I'm going to say to you, open yourselves up and step out of Western mindset. And we're going to see this more than once today. Ready? Source 8. Rav Elia Lopian. Umatzinu od b'chazal shamru asur listakel b'tzelem dmon adam rasha. When the Gemara says you can't stare at the dmon of an adam rasha, and I will tell you there are people who, when they look at the news, will be careful not to look at pictures of Hamas members. Yes, ma'am.
I just have to say, a lot of the hostages spoke and mentioned that the Mechablim forced them to look them in the eyes. If they looked down, they forced them to look them in the eyes. A lot of them spoke about that.
Wow. Right, again, the Mechablim forcing these Chatufim to look them in the eye. There is something about it. Thank you for sharing. V'katav Marsha. The Marsha explains. Marsha is a commentator on the Gemara. Hatama pima shamru chachmei Kabbalah. Why aren't you supposed to look at them? This is chachmei Kabbalah. Here goes. Shishora al harasha ruach hatuma. On the Rasha is a ruach hatuma, a force of impurity. And he says, she'im yistakel b'fanav yishreg gam alav ruach hatuma. It will impact you. You know, in our day and age of COVID, we can appreciate this more. Like, there is something called in the physical world, infection. I'm looking for contagious. Yeah, things are contagious. Do I see this? These molecules flying around here? I don't. Yeah. Pregnant women not going to the zoo is an excellent example. 100%. 100%. Ki einayim, listen closely. Ki einayim habsarim hanirim lefanenu. When we look at our eyes, lamito shel davar hemenam mavim shum koach shel etzem Maria. Our eyes aren't the ones that are seeing. Elahim rak, double underline, kamo chalonot shedarkam nichnasim zaharei hashemesh. Just like a window takes in the rays of sun, I will never say that the window itself emits sunlight. It doesn't. It's just a what? A medium with which to give over the sunlight. Likewise, we say, v'chein hadavar hazeh ki koach hariyah hu koach ruchani mikaro b'mocho shel adam. What really sees? Our head, our mind. You know how they say the eyes are the windows of the soul. It's our mind that's seeing. It's our mind that's apprehending. And our eyes are just that medium. And therefore, he says, V'lachein, when a person stares at an Adam Rasha, Pogea davar zeh b'koach hariyah ruchani shebemocho, it's going to affect you on a spiritual level. And shora alav ruach hatuma. And he says, this is what? If somebody says to themselves, where did I get these strange thoughts from? Like, I'm suddenly thinking about things I never thought about before, or have desires for things I never had desires about, or I question emunah. Ask yourself, what were you or who were you looking at most recently? And you have no idea how that can what? Affect you. Now, I am not telling to you, don't walk out of here saying, okay, stay in bed all day, put the covers over your head. What I am saying is that we can choose what we look at and how we look at it. And even if you see something, it doesn't mean you have to what? Stare at it.
This is child.
What'd you say?
This is child. This is not the relationship is a little different.
I can't see without my glasses. I can't hear. Yeah.
I'm saying the relationship is different. This is between a father and a son, like.
Oh, you're saying the relationship is different. Now I'm back to you. You're Esav. Yeah. How could Esav look at Yitzchak Avinu look at his own son? Yeah. It's a hard time with this. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
So Yitzchak is known as Tom, right? In some ways.
Yaakov is.
Oh, Yaakov.
Yaakov is Tom. Yeah.
So Yitzchak projected his own holiness onto his son.
Beautiful. We're going to get to that. You're 100% correct. You're 100% correct. You got it. That's from Dessler. I'm going to ask you to hold. But you're right. Yeah.
Wouldn't be loss of hearing more impactful, I would think, than eyesight?
Would loss of hearing be more impactful than eyesight? Your question is an excellent question, and it's a complicated question because the dimension of seeing and the dimension of hearing are very different. They're very different. We are more impacted sometimes with what we see, even though with what we hear is more MS. It's interesting. I'll just make mention of this, and I'm going to leave this, and I'm leaving this. I'm almost leaving this. I'm not yet leaving this. The Gemara in Talmud Bavli will say, Tashma, come in here. The Gemara Yerushalmi will say, Tachaze, come and see. And that's an interesting distinction. The Galus is to hear, and Eretz Yisrael is to see. What you make of it, I'm leaving to you, but the question is good. Okay, yes?
Rabbi Tatz says that when one hears, it is
A process.
a multiple process.
Right.
So your brain has to take in what's going on, that's probably why you need to put on your glasses. And then
Thanks.
you need to put it together. But Re'iyah
It's right
is
there.
immediate, it's in front of you. Even though it's an interpretive process as well, but so that could also be
At play here, good. I'm just going to make mention, because I want to move here, in 10 and 11, that if that is the case with seeing someone who's a Rasha, flip it over, al-achas kama v'kama, when you see a what? A tzaddik, v'hainun 11, v'choshechein in 11b, imat tzaddik, v'chein ra'ui ma'od, laharbot b'yistaklus 11a, b'pnei tzaddikim hadvukim b'Hashem Yisbarach. Sheyesh b'zeh k'dei lo'osif tara v'kedusha. And you see that, with little kids in a crib, they often put pictures of tzaddikim, right? Because this is what impacts you. And he says even more so if a tzaddik looks at you, what an impact it has on you and who you are. And this is an important idea is when you bring your children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, Sof Kol Hadoros to tzaddikim, they're saying they're 3 years old. What are they gaining? The answer is a lot. And it's interesting is that on the Sunday class, somebody was saying that they remember, Bryony was saying that she remembers when she was 3 or 4 years old, her father bringing her to Rebbetzin Pam, Rav Pam's mother. And he said to the children, he says, I want you to look at the face of the Shechina. And we're talking about many years later, we're not giving away ages here. Many years later, she says she still remembers that face and what an impact it made on her. So it's never too young to bring children to see what? This is what creates Yiras Shamayim. This is what creates that feeling of, wow, there's something bigger and better. Okay, I finished that, parentheses, now I'm back to the program. There's another aspect of being blinded and bribery that Esav did to Yaakov, and that's source 12. And that's the pasuk that says, this is Rav Zweig from Miami, Infinity of Torah, bribery blinds the eyes of the righteous. The Medrash explains the gifts of food that Esav brought to Yitzchak blinded him to Esav's true character, and he lost his physical vision as well. So Rav Zweig here says something very special. He says, what type of bribery are we talking about here? To go over a judge and say, here's $1,000, make sure you judge my case appropriately. Hopefully no judge would what? Any judge worth their salt would what? would not take it. So what type of bribe are we talking about? Listen to what he says here. It's a case, I'm on the end of 12, where the guy says, look, this case is very important to me, and I care very deeply about making sure that your verdict is correct. If I'm really in the right, then I want to make sure I win. And if I'm wrong, then I certainly want to rule against me. Because the truth is so important to me, I'd like to pay you so you can devote your time to really studying my case. Now, what happens at that moment? Let's flip the page, the next page, and then we'll find out what happens. By professing his commitment to the truth, the litigant portrays himself as a righteous man. Unlike an effort to corrupt a judge, which would likely result in judge throwing the book at him, here the judge will subconsciously begin to reason, this guy must be right. Why? Because he really cares about justice and truth. That is why this type of bribe is so insidious as to be capable of blinding a judge to the truth. It's also why Esav's bribes were so successful in misleading his father. Esav presented himself to Yitzchak Avinu as a man of virtue and piety, a pretense that Yitzchak Avinu accepted, and that ultimately cost him his ability to see. So we're saying here a little bit different than the original Medrash, even though I'm going to get back to this of Rashi, that Yitzchak Avinu was blinded by his sons through bribery. But it's a different type of bribery than we would normally understand. What's the message for us? That's what I want to speak about for a few minutes, because if we don't bring it to our lives, then we're very limited. And that is, says the Mishchat Shemen in the bracket, V'yesh lanu, source 14, Limod mikan, limud gadol bavodat adam alei adamos. Shamonea hagadol lisko likirvas elokim. One of the greatest impediments for us to come close to Hashem, hu kasher mechaseh einav shelo lirot midotav haraot, ve'nochai becheshbon v'shmira al ma'asav. You know what our biggest problem is? We don't introspect enough. We don't ask ourselves enough, why did I do what I did? What could I have done? What should have I done? Ve'no mashkiach al tzmo dayat tzarech. Ki al kein mechuyav kol bar Yisrael liot einam pkuchot lashkiach al matzavo haruchani v'lakir chalkei nafsho halo tavim. We have to know ourselves. And that when we do certain things, we have to be able, as I often like to say, name it to tame it. That if I know what is going on within me, then I can what? I can control it. I know that this is anger right now. And I know that you trigger me. Oh, okay. I still may get angry, but at least I know I have what? To work with. I'm aware of myself. So many of us just go through life on a what? An automatic pilot. And we never ask ourselves, well, what could I have done differently? You know, the example that I like to give, which is a practical example, is being on the phone when you're checking out at, say, Barcol, Yesh, whatever, and you're not using the machine, you're using a person. What you're basically doing is treating the person like a what? Like a machine. So at the end of my day, when I look back, I say, you know what? I really didn't treat this person correctly. You know what? I'm going to try to go back another day and dafka, even if it's a longer line, go to, am I making sense? This person and say, good morning. Try to compliment them. Whatever it is. I've thought about it. I'm using this as a metaphor, yeah? It's not just the checkout lady. It's life. So we don't check out. And we're present. We try. Achasiba in the circle asterisk. Shein b'nei adam nogim kachim mipnei sheinei b'nei adam mechusim v'kahim mir'odam atzav amiti. We're blinded by ourselves. And he says in 15, this is not just like major averos. Hello, kol pradu praman agad adam sarich yuenap kuchot lakir b'negei hanefesh hatzrichim tikkun v'kapara. We have to constantly work on ourselves. And he says, this is a bracha, shelo sanagoy. I always have an in to promote. If anyone still doesn't have this, this is found in this book. And if you have it, then, you know, I'm sure you've given out to every one of your friends. Now make new friends. Shelo sanagoy. We say every morning. Why do we say every morning? Either we're born as a Yid or I decide at a certain point in my life I'll become Jewish. Why do we say it every morning? And the answer is, and the Chavetz Chaim Zatzal would do, look at yourself. Has any goyishkeit entered into me? Have I been affected by the world around me? In what way? In my language, you have your finger on the pulse. And most of the time, it's like that type of bribery Rav Zweig was talking about. It's insidious. We don't even know it's what? It's entered into us. And he says, if a person is at this level of being really, conscious of oneself, it's so much easier to nip it in the bud than if one allows it to tarry. This is basically the idea in source number 18 of the Mesilas Yesharim, of the heroes, the concept of watchfulness, that man must be careful in his deeds and his dealings. In other words, he should contemplate his deeds and his ways to see if they're good or not. He must be extremely cautious at all times and take our actions seriously. How are we to achieve this? Well, consider the behavior of a person carrying a priceless crystal ball, well aware that dropping it would mean the destruction of a small fortune. One exercises maximum caution and avoids unnecessary risks. Contrast his behavior with that of a person holding a worthless trinket. The latter will hardly take his burden as seriously as the former. By the same token, when we stroll down a quiet street, we feel little need for special precautions. But when we navigate a tightrope where a false move means injury, mutilation, or death, the caution level skyrockets. Anyone here ever been on a tightrope? I have a little secret to tell you. Our whole lives are what? A tightrope. What'd you say? Gesher Tzarmod. And we all know here, whether we've done it or we've experienced it, one comment, one can hurt somebody. Do you know what I mean? We're walking a tightrope. We don't know the people in front of us. We don't know what's triggering them. We don't know how one thing we say. So clearly we don't know, we can't. But when we do know, and when we should be. Let me try to say this one more time, because I really want to get this through. I'm going to try one more time. We are responsible for our actions. Do we take this responsibility and accountability seriously? Everything we say, everything we do, and people watch us. And we have to live up to that. Now, he takes this one step further, and he says, in this life, this is Rav Yaakov Hillel in the asterisk, there is no place for instinctive or impulsive movement. When we run, we must know why we're running. Man's not an animal. Actions must be controlled rather than spontaneous. They must be carefully checked and double-checked. Are they good? Are they bad? Where are they leading us? You ever watch little kids? You'll have this one little kid. We're talking about 5, 6 years old. They're going to start running. And then you have all of their little buddies, what? Run after them. Where are they running to? The answer is nowhere. So then they stop and they start to giggle. And everyone else stops and they start to giggle. Right? Because the kids are thinking they're running somewhere, and they're running where? Nowhere. The problem is when we never grow up. Was this too harsh? A little bit. Ooh. It's real. It is real. It is. It's important that we have to. Awareness, understanding, analysis, control. These are the ingredients of life properly lived. Intellectually, no one could disagree. 28. When we live this type of awareness, we gain. On the bottom of this page, another level. Hanaset Svivo. V'chol inyan tov shirei aser davar lav tekef roshem tov. When you're living this way, you're able to also access the Kedusha around you. You're able to take in and watch people who are doing amazing things and say, what? I want to be like them. I want to learn from them. So living a life of awareness, on the one hand, means that we have to be more careful of our own lives. And living a life of awareness means that we're able to take in from around us such amazing qualities, such great things, that we become a different person. And the example that he gives, the end of this page in 21 on the next page, is the idea of this individual who went into the Beis Hamikdash. The Panovich Rav asks, in the asterisk in 21, I don't get it. He goes into the Beis Hamikdash and he takes out a menorah. So if he's on this level, to walk into the Beis Hamikdash has no compunction to take out the menorah. So how does he change so suddenly to say, no, I'm not going back in, and to be ready to be tortured to death? And the answer is, somebody tell me? Very good, excellent, exactly. When he walked, we're okay? That's okay. When he walked into the Beis Hamikdash, that impacted him. When he went in there, that changed him as a person. And that experience of being in the Heichal made him a what? A different person. He says, I can't go back in now. The menorah itself is that enlightenment and light, and Hashem will about the Hanukkah time. Yeah, this is what it's about. Rabbosai, we're in Yerushalayim, you're a Kodesh. Do you understand that? Do you know how much Kedusha is around us? Do you know how much we can take in from places and people that we can become different people? Ashreinu, this is amazing. We have to be open for it. We have to want it. We have to be ready for it. Now, I'll just add one more nakuda here, and then we'll end this first level. And that's Rabbi Frand. When we're talking about negios and bias, he says in source number 24, in the language of Torah literature, this kind of hidden agenda is called negios, subjectivity. Subconscious forces are constantly at work in our minds and heart, steering us in directions not necessarily of our conscious choosing. And this is what I want us to understand. So when I say, yes, I have to be aware and control and not just run nowhere, and I have to be, again, mindful of the decisions that I make, at the same time realize that we're all under a bias and negios. We're incessantly swayed by considerations of financial gain, personal honor, love, hate, resentments, envy, ambition, and even if we're unaware that it's happening, by their constant probing of the underlying motivations of the people in the Torah is letting us know. Negios always affects behavior. Every decision we make, everything that we do, this is intense today, is it's intense every week, so I can't say that. It's instigated by reasons within reasons. You're the one coming back. I have to come back. You don't have to. Instigated by reasons within reasons and motives within motives. But often we don't realize it. Bribery blinds the eyes of the wise. We're in a constant state of being bribed by our subconscious, which seeks to gain advantage of which we're not even aware of. And he says, sometimes you hear people say, look, I admit, I'm not no gay, I'm biased. But I'm telling you that this information I'm giving you is pure and simple truth. I can assure you, my friends, that what? It's everything but. They themselves, when recognize the pure and simple truth, they were staring them in the face. The measure of personal greatness is the extent of a person's ability to rise above his hidden agendas. How do you do this? He notes in 25 a three-pronged solution. One, learn Musar, that you're able to see something and objectively think about it. Two, having a mentor. And three, a good friend who's able to say, what were you thinking? This is really what was drawing you. Now, let's go back to our original Medrash, and I went to the next page, 27. Back to Yitzchak Avinu. Why was he so affected by Esav? Why wasn't he able to see and make this calculation? Why didn't he say to, again, I'm not talking about Yitzchak, but I am talking about Yitzchak Avinu. Why wasn't he able to say, is he really who he seems to be? Why wasn't he able to probe deeper? The answer is the tears at the Akedah. Listen to Rav Schwab's Zatzal in 27. The Medrash is based on a pasuk in Yeshaya. The pasuk says, angels cried out openly, messengers of peace wept bitterly. That's the pasuk that they learn it from. The second half of the pasuk, messengers of peace wept bitterly, is the key to understanding this mysterious medrash. Like all angels, these messengers of peace, messenger angels were created to fulfill one mission only. Thus one can infer that these angels of mercy were the personification of shalom, intensely compassionate, incapable of looking critically at any event. When these angels saw the Akedah, they cried. Their tears, a manifestation of their extreme compassion, fell into Yitzchak Avinu's eyes, changing his worldview. So it's not literally that the tears fell into his eyes, but that he was influenced by the angels. It became that of these messengers of peace and mercy, showing only good in others. This is why Yaakov Avinu's old age became incapable of seeing any fault in Esav, and was prepared to bless him despite his shortcomings. He was blinded. He was blinded to only see the what? The good. So that's one understanding of that medrash, that the angels impacted him to only see good. And when you only see good, you're not even open to what? That critical eye of saying, is there another part to this? And that was from Yitzchak Avinu, from the Akedah. Yeah?
There's a great Rabbi Levine story. He meets this Talmud, and the Talmud isn't wearing the kippah, but Rabbi Levine was short. He says, I don't see,
Right. Right. So again, Rav Aryeh Levine, who saw a Talmud. I'm repeating it. Rav Aryeh Levine, who saw a Talmud who wasn't wearing a kippah, and the Talmud was feeling a little bit uncomfortable. And Rav Aryeh said, I'm short. I can't see the top of your head. Right? So that's having a good eye. That's Rav Levi Yitzchak. That's the good eye. And at the same time, everything is in balance. By Yitzchak Avinu, it was to the extreme because the angels of peace only saw positivity. That's level one. Level two is the Shari Ora. No. Let's look at this totally different, my friends. Ubiyarnu debechiyat malchei asharet al mashahem lo yucholim lekadesh shmo shel kadosh baruch hu kamo hadam hashafel. They're not crying about the Akedah per se. They're crying about themselves. Shirak adam bal basar v'ruach yachol lagia lema'amad v'matzav kaseh v'heim begadlutam einam yocholim lekadesh et Hashem kamo hadam hashafel. They're crying how we can't reach this level. Wow. What a human being can achieve. Gewalt! And we can never achieve this. What was the tears? What impact did it have on Yitzchak Avinu? It was the tears that showed Yitzchak Avinu Zutachlis Abriya. This is the purpose of this world, to be Mekadesh Shem Shamayim. And that the more that you struggle and the more that you like the Akedah, and you're able to give up, the greater you are. And hence you understand why when he saw prophetically these traitors, he says they should be blessed, because that was the message of the angels. And now we can appreciate why he loved Yitzchak more. Yitzchak Avinu loved Esav more. Why? Because Esav was a person of struggle. He was a person of struggle. This is Rav Dessler, what you mentioned before. Here we go. Of course, Yitzchak Avinu knew both of his children. He was Yitzchak Avinu. But what else did he know? He knew that Yaakov Avinu was a tzaddik of complete inwardness. He doesn't need bracha. He is able to manage on his own. Who needs bracha? Who needs help? The underdog needs help, right? You don't have tutoring for a kid who's flying in school. You have tutoring for a kid who's what? Who's struggling. Yitzchak knew that Esav was different than Yaakov in 31. He knew that Esav was an outward person. He believed, however, that Esav, like Yitzchak himself, was engaged in a continual battle with the lower external aspects of his character. What he did not know was that Esav had of his own free will virtually extinguished that spark. And this is the idea the Zohar Kadosh speaks about of matzah min et mino. Yitzchak Avinu saw in Esav a real reflection of what? Of himself. And he saw in him, wow, just like I learned by the Akedah, the tears of the angels, that what is so beloved to Hashem, which the angels can't reach, is when we struggle down here. I want to bless Esav, because this is a personification of one who what? Who struggles. Now, why this is so important, my friends, is going back to what I began with today. Western civilization is very into the end product. And, I remember when my kids were younger, they would read these books, and they would say, Ima, why do all the books have to end happy ever after? They all get married, they all get better, they all have whatever, it's the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Why can't any of these books be real life? Do you hear the question? Not that none of them are, but you know what I'm talking about. Because in the Western culture, when you struggle, there's something what? Something wrong with you. You're a failure. You mean you haven't achieved 14 letters after your name by the age of 12? I mean, like, hello. Okay, a little bit. And Yiddishkeit, and this is very important, Yiddishkeit, it's not about the final result. That's it. You hit the word. It's about process. Because you know what? The final result is what? It's not only irrelevant, it's even more than that. It's not in your control. It's never in your control. We all know this. We've invested in something with all of our being, and then it turned out to be, it could be a banana cake. It doesn't have to be anything so, Have any of you made a cake and spent a lot of time on it and then it didn't come out? Yeah, of course. And I use that as a metaphor. I say this personally in a very deep, sincere way. Preparing these shiurim is, I can't find a good word to describe it. Brutal. That's a good word. Brutal is a good word. It's hard. It's really hard. It's really hard. I'm not complaining. This wasn't a complaint. It was just reality. I need to do with Siyata Deshmaya, and a lot of it, all of it, the best I can. How a shir will come out, I don't know. And that's all Siyata Deshmaya. Will people be able to hear it? How they'll be able to hear it? They'll like it, they won't like it, they'll grow, they won't grow. Not in my hands. And you know what, my friends? I have a little secret to tell you. When you're able to step out of trying to be in control of the results, you're living a much, you want to give me the word? Healthier, happier, what word are you going to use? Calmer life. Because I'm not in control. And I have a little secret to tell you parenthetically. We are not in control of anything. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say something just came up yesterday, that there's an expression that says this and this was an act of God.
This was an act of God.
Hilarious. What's not?
What is not an act of God? Everything is. Yeah.
Just yesterday.
Just so this is it. This is it. This is where it's at. Right? I just taught this piece yesterday. I can't tell you where, but I just taught this yesterday, of maybe more than once, where Moshe Rabbeinu was by the sneh, and Hashem asked him, Maza biyadecha, what's in your hand? And he answered, the mata, a staff. And Rav Michal Tursky has such a beautiful piece in Yoram Hayam, and he says, you think what's in your hand is a staff. A staff is a symbol of control, of leadership, right? You know what's in your hand? Mata as nitiyah. The only thing in your hand is how you respond to life situations. What happens to you, nothing is in your control. The only thing that's in your control is your response to what happens in life. Now, why I'm bringing this here, my friends, is the following. Rabbi Friend, again, listen to your messages. A Talmud of Rav Yitzchak Hutner, Zatzal, once wrote to him about his frustrations in the spiritual realm. I'm in 33, did I say that? I'm tired, I try so hard, but I don't see myself getting any better. I don't see growth. It's such a difficult struggle. Never give up, Rav Hutner wrote back. Shevi pol tzaddik v'kam, that's what it's all about. The battles, the struggles, that's a tzaddik. What do you think the pasuk means? That tzaddik gets up even though he falls? No! Shlomo Melech is teaching the way to rise is through repeated falls. You become a tzaddik by falling down and rising. You grow from the experience to become a better person. Growth comes from struggle. It's not automatic. You can't coast and grow. You got to fight to grow. You got to struggle to grow. You may lose the battles, but you're going to win the war. And here, the very famous piece of Rav Hutner Zatzal, he bemoans these biographies that describe tzaddikim as being perfect from day one. They did Nagovasser by age 1. And they learned all Mishayos by age 5. They never fought with their brothers and sisters. They wrote their first sefer by age of 10. Like, this isn't real. This isn't realistic. And we know that, certain books have been banned because they painted a what? A real picture. And they got banned. But the real picture is something that I can what? I can relate to that. I did fight with my brothers and sisters. I confess. Who didn't? Listen to this pshat. It's a gewaldig pshat in 34. We say this as one of the psukim in our shofros in Rosh Hashanah. Not too early for Rosh Hashanah. Pasuk says, Uvahu ha'ovdim be'eretz Ashur, v'nidachim be'eretz Mitzrayim. 34, and those who are lost in the land of Ashur will come, prophesies Yeshaya about Messianic times, and those who are displaced in the land of Egypt. So ask Rav Tzadok HaKohen Zatzal, who's farther removed, one who's lost or one who's displaced? So obviously, the one who's displaced is closer than the one who's lost. So why is the one who's lost in Ashur, is he coming back? V'ovdim be'eretz Ashur, he's coming back first before the nidachim be'eretz Mitzrayim. And he says, what's the difference? And again, this is a metaphor. The land of Ashur and the land of Egypt were different. Ashur was a country of rocky, semi-arid hills where farmers had to struggle and scrape to bring forth the bounty of the land. But Egypt was a breadbasket. You planted in the rich loam of the Nile River overflowed, you'd harvest it. If you're lost in the land of Ashur, declares the prophet, if your life has been a spiritual struggle, if it's been a spiritual battle, if you've had to fight your Yetzer Hara, it'll be easier to bring you back, even if you lost the battle. But if you're in the land of Egypt, if you did not struggle against the Yetzer Hara, it will be harder to bring you back. And my friends, this is so true of the world we're living in today. We are nidachim be'eretz Mitzrayim, in the land of pleasures. It's hard to bring Bar back. And the Chatufim are an example of this too. Struggle brings people back. Now, my friends, we're up to the third level, which is my favorite. I always leave it for the last. Not always, sometimes. Here we go. See, that was self-reflection. Was I telling the truth? Not always. I have to correct myself. Oh, Shira, stop talking out loud. Here we go. Where was I? Third level. Now I know where I was. First level, the tears of the angels blinded him from only seeing good. Message for our lives, we are all affected by bribery. And we have to try to peel away the layers. Why did I say this? Introspect. Live a life of awareness. Be careful who we see, both ways, and how Kedusha can impact me in such an amazing way. 2, the tears of the angels were their own frustration. Why can't we grow to this extent? People are so special that humans with struggle can be able to overcome their struggles and reach the levels of Akeda, the levels of sacrifice. How come we can't do that? 3 is Rav Lopiansky. Here we go, 35. What is sight? To better understand the Torah's concept of blindness, let's examine the faculty of sight. Shlomo Melech is teaching us the ability, the wise man has eyes in his head while the fool walks blindly. Seeing is the essence of his wisdom. And that's the difference between animals that can see and respond, but they're limited to what they're wired. Humans have the ability to both physically and rationally see in double squiggly. You can see based on the present situation, what the future holds in store, and he can plan accordingly. Determine his future through the power of sight, which makes him godlike. So what is special about sight? That we have the ability to foresee and to plan and to understand. Like, we say, I see what you're saying, which is really I what? I understand what you're saying. But my friends, there's a higher level, and that is man and cattle are saved by God. Rabbi Eliezer Yehuda said in the name of Rab. This refers to people who possess full wisdom, yet depreciate themselves to the level of cattle. What does this mean? Although he's very wise, he abdicates his wisdom in the face of Hashem's wisdom. He does not do this because he believes his own wisdom to be deficient or because he would rather not have to think. No. He recognizes when he has stretched himself to the limits of his own wisdom. What'd you say? B'diuk. He's then able to give it over to the Ribono Shel Olam. Avram Avinu found Hashem. Next page, 38. Yitzchak Avinu was the next step by being ready to be offered as a sacrifice. The antithesis of any conclusion at which a person could arrive with his own wisdom, Yitzchak Avinu became the paradigm of denigrating is a hard word, oneself to a level of cattle. In the face of Hashem's wisdom, he stood on top of Avram Avinu's intellectual shoulders and saw what is above that, Hashem's wisdom. This is the meaning of Yitzchak Avinu's blindness. After the Akedah, the light by which he was being led was vastly superior to his own, and his own eyesight, quote unquote, retired. This is the meaning of Rashi's explanation. The tears of the angel of the Akedah caused Yitzchak's blindness. Tears are an expression of something that's beyond comprehension and grasp, such as joy or grief that cannot be expressed in words. Although angels are the ultimate beings of comprehension, the Akedah was such an incomprehensible act that even they could only respond with tears. For Yitzchak, however, personal comprehension was no longer relevant. His blindness was neither a punishment nor a handicap, but rather an elevation to a higher plane of reliance on Hashem's vision rather than of his own. What was the greatness of Yitzchak Avinu? He was able to abdicate his own mindset to a higher will. And this is hard, my friends, because again, going back to we like to be in control. But there are some things in life that we have to be able to step back and say, I just don't what? I don't get it. And I give it, as you said correctly, I give it over. I know God's wisdom is greater than mine. Now I can appreciate why he was so taken by those traitors. Because what did those traitors represent? It wasn't about their own mindset. They were able to move to a dimension. That's what tshuva is, beyond the human comprehension. Now we can appreciate 40. The brachas of Yitzchak were meant to come to Yaakov through events that mirrored this attribute of Yitzchak. Almost paradoxically, had these events been pre-planned and executed as per the plan, they would be somewhat lacking this quality of giving it over to God. Yaakov's bracha came about totally because of Hashem's overriding human vision and planning. You're calling it trickery. I'm calling it what? Hashem's orchestration of this world which goes above and beyond our understanding. That's why when Yitzchak Avinu hears that Ba achicha b'mirma, your brother came in trickery, b'chochma, everyone understands it. He says, Gam baruch yeh, he should be blessed. Because now I know it was really Hashem who's orchestrating this. He moved into the dimension of Yitzchak Avinu. Yitzchak confirms the bracha precisely because it did not conform to the plan he had in mind. And that's what's clearly a result of Hashem's wisdom. And this we can appreciate, the Medrash that says in 41, that in the schus of the Akedah we have Birkas Kohanim. So on the tikbo level you have the word ko in both cases. In the context of the Akedah, we will go until here means our activities and actions can only take us up to this point. From here onwards, it's all Hashem's doing. And that's the starting point for Birkas Kohanim. A person is obligated to give his wisdom and his abilities to his utmost. But at the point which his effort reached their limits, that's when bracha takes off. And we so often block bracha because we think, finish my sentence, we think we can what? We can solve this on our own. You know, God, if I run into problems, I'll give you a call. What is real bracha about? Being able to understand that I am limited and that Hashem is the one who benches me. To really reach this level of giving oneself over, it's very hard. It's where bitachon comes in. There's a sefer that I highly recommend. It's in Hebrew and in English. The English is here. It's called Becoming a Baal Bitachon, Rabbi Abramov. The missing Abramov part is missing. It's a sefer I would not learn on your own. I would learn b'chavrusa. After you finish the Rise and Aspire, yeah, obviously. Or while you're learning that, yeah. I have one-track mind, yeah. It's an incredible sefer. And it's about this struggle that we have based on the Chovos Levavos of how do you become a Baal Bitachon. And he says here, 42 and 43, he says here, like, you know, I don't know if people here take buses. A lot of you take buses. You have Kalkav, where you know when the, what is it? When the buses are going to come?
Not anymore.
Move it.
Oh, move it. Now you have move it. Oh, we're ready to move it. This is it. Do you see how we like to have every moment of our lives, what? In our hands. And every moment of my life is going to be exactly what? Measured. Becoming a Baal Bitachon means that, you know what? I hate to break the news to you. Sometimes the buses don't show up. Did you ever experience that? The third level is about abdicating our wisdom to a higher wisdom. The tears are about it's being incomprehensible. I don't get it. That's the message of of Yitzchak's blindness. He wasn't blind. Remember we spoke about a few weeks ago, there's no such thing as darkness. It's light that's obscured. Yitzchak Avinu wasn't blind. He was able to see a different dimension of light. He was able to see the light of clarity of Hashem running the show. That's the highest level of light. It wasn't blindness. Now I want to end with a piece from the Oah Moshe, and this will end, where he quotes here a very famous idea of Rav Shmuel Birnbaum Zatzal, who says, if you look at the language of the Medrash says, Ba'osa shah niftechu hashamayim. At that hour, the heavens opened, and the Malchei Hasharetz, the angels, saw the Akedah, and they cried. Why did the heavens have to open? Couldn't the angels see it from where? In the heaven? Like, why did the heavens have to open? And he says very profoundly, he says, in heaven, everything is clear. The only way the angels could cry was if the heavens are opened from our perspective. But from the perspective of heaven, there are no tears. And that's our challenge, to live this aspect. Going back to last week, Kulam Shavim Latova, to live this aspect of heaven on earth and being able to understand my job is just mata, lahatot, to be able to respond. But everything that happens in my life, every moment, is being orchestrated by the Ribono Shel Olam. Ad kan.